Big wave surfing is not for the faint of heart. In Nazaré, Portugal, waves reach an incredible height, a daunting challenge for the world's greatest surfers. Andrew Cotton, plumber turned professional surfer, yes, you heard that right, has earned his place on the waves in Nazaré. But in 2017, a devastating wipeout shattered his spine. In this TwynCast, he'll share everything that happened out on the water, the hard road to recovery, and give insights into the resilience needed to climb back onto the board. That is what this is all about. Resilience. Hey, welcome to TwynCast. I hope you're about to have as much fun as we did making this. So let's get into this. How are you?
Hello, I'm great, thanks.
Good to hear it. Look, I'm super excited to have Andrew here today. Let's get him in. Just a heads up, he's from Devon, so that serious expression you're about to see is his way of saying hello. Sorry, Andy. I know. Anyway. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us today. You know, it's a massive privilege to talk to you about not only your story and how you got to this point and having that wipeout in 2017, but also your road to recovery. I mean, you know, that's what a lot of us want to know about, is the resilience. How do you get that resilience in yourself to build yourself back up? So look, there's a lot to dig into. Let's get into it.
What do you want to know?
Well, Cotty, the first thing to decide is, where do we even begin?
Well, we could start from the beginning.
A very good place to start.
The middle? I don't know. The end?
Look, Cotty, you and I have gone backwards and forwards a lot, and your story is amazing. Yeah, obviously, I love the story of how you wanted to become a surfer, ended up becoming a plumber, and eventually did get sponsored by Red Bull. But let's chuck this to our guest. Do you want to, hear the story from the beginning about how Andrew became a plumber and then got into big wave surfing? Or do you want to just go straight to the wipeout and understand how that happened? Totally up to you. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it from the start.
Yeah, well, listen, let's dig into it. Let's dig into where this all began. Tell us about the first, how you even got into surfing.
The first time I ever went surfing, my dad took me down to Salt and Sands Beach in North Devon. He hired me a board and a wetsuit. It was Easter. It was freezing cold. It was raining. And I can remember my dad, it was like he didn't go in the water. He sort of just hired me the stuff and then sent me in the sea. And I think I only went back to the car and read the paper. And then came and checked on me about an hour later. But I loved it. It was like, and I can remember getting changed after the session. And I was so cold, like the higher wetsuit was like cardboard, and like it was almost pointless wearing it. It was so bad, but it was just like it was freezing cold, but I was just super stoked.
Okay, well, so was it kind of love at first sight? Did you get the bug? Was the surfing bug in you at that point? So was it every moment you could surf, or was it more of a slow burn?
Well, we lived about 20 minutes, half an hour from the beach. So it was a lot of pestering my parents to take me to the beach. And then when I was old enough, I started hitching or catching the bus, hitching rides to the beach. It was just like at any given moment, like, how do I get to the sea?
So when did kind of professional surfing kind of even enter your mind?
As I was like leaving school, and I was, you go to like the careers officer and you tell them what jobs you think you want to do, and I told my careers officer that I want to be a professional surfer, and she pretty much just sort of said this, you can't do it, it's not on the list of jobs to do. So the thing is that I knew that I didn't want to go to college or university. So I opted to look for a job in the surf industry. And I ended up getting a job in a surfboard factory.
Okay, cool. A surfboard factory is actually something we've got in common. I did that through university. What did you do there? What did that involve?
It started off as just sweeping the floor, doing cups of tea, coffee, to working my way up to ding repairs. And then I got promoted and I was glassing surfboards. And I think I was like, I worked at the surfboard factory for 10 years. The last few years I was shaping. And there was huge benefits to working at the factory. It was actually like, it was pretty much like being a professional surfer. You just like, in between surfs, you just had to get your hands dirty. So, but yeah, it was great. So the sort of like the motto or the ethos of everyone who worked in the factory was like, you know, we're never going to miss a good low tide session. And I think pretty much for like 10 years from the day I left school to like mid-20s, 25, 26, like I don't think I ever really did miss a good low tide session at my local beach.
Okay, look, there's a lot to dig into, so I'm gonna chuck it over to our guest, because we could go in multiple different ways. Do you want to learn more about the surfboard factory, what happened there over 10 years, or do you want to get into how he became a plumber? Up to you.
I don't want to skip those 10 years. So maybe the surfboard factory.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a long time to skip over. Let's dig into that with Andrew. Andrew, for our guests and stuff, let's explain, what does glassing surfboards mean?
You know, when I say glassing a surfboard, I mean like, fiberglassing. So you're like pulling layers of fiberglass over and mixing up resin and sort of like squeezing it down.
Yeah, totally. I get it. One of the things that I loved about working in the surf industry, especially when I was younger, was that we all had a crew that surfed, and you mentioned that earlier as well. When we kind of got into the winter season, we used to all take off. Is that something you guys did too?
So, come December, when it was getting cold and dark in England, the factory shut down, and we used to take like 8 to 10 weeks off traveling. And it was on those trips, those like winter trips, that I sort of found my first real passion for big waves. And it was funny because actually, like, the guys in the factory that I used to surf with are actually like way better surfers than me.
Everyone else at the factory was a better surfer than you, really?
And for me, like professional, like I always wanted to be a good contest surfer, and a small wave surfer, and that's what I really aspired to be. But I noticed on a couple of trips, especially when we were in Hawaii, that when the waves, like, they were absolutely smoking me, like at a small rocky point. But when we started surfing like Sunset or Waimea, like the tables were turning, and I was sort of like holding my own and coming into my own sort of like, my own strengths.
Sunset and Waimea are no joke. Those are heavy waves. But it must have been super encouraging to find a niche that you felt you could grow in.
I was kind of like, it was cool. I was like, I know where I can, this is how I can be better, or as good as them. When the waves get bigger, I felt like I was like, that was where my strengths were. So yeah, that's when I first started like digging and getting into bigger waves.
Speaking of big waves, let's chuck it back to our guest. Do you want us to jump into the main event, or would you like to hear about Andrew's exciting life as a plumber?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that you started out as a plumber and then you went to surfing. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, okay, I get it. I want to hear about this too, because obviously you were enjoying your life. You were out there. You're working at a surfboard factory. You're surfing. You're getting to surf some amazing waves all around the world, like Hawaii and places like that. So what happened to make you choose to become a plumber?
Yeah, come my mid-20s, like life sort of been doing like in that cycle, like surfing, traveling for over 10 years, and it was just pretty much a lot of pressure from my parents to sort of move on and get a proper job. So my dad had a great idea that I should retrain as a plumber, and how he put it was like earn some real money, So I actually did an evening class at college. So the first year I did an evening class and still worked in the surfboard factory. And then by year 2, it's kind of like I had to sort of make a bit more of a commitment. And I got an apprenticeship with a local plumber, and then finished off my course at college. And then by the third year, I got a proper job for an underfloor heating company. We did underfloor heating and solar panels.
It must have been a big change.
I went from pretty much having my own schedule, like turning up to work when I wanted, leaving when I wanted, as long as the work was done at the end of the week. I could pretty much go surfing when I want, to pretty much surfing once a week, if that. Like early starts, late finishes. It was a big change. Like all of a sudden, like surfing wasn't the priority, and plumbing was. So it's like,
Okay, I've got to ask, did you regret that instantly?
instantly, I sort of, not instantly, like I kind of like dig the money at first and was like, okay, it's nice having a bit of cash. But then after about a year of not surfing much, I was kind of over it, and I decided that, like, pretty much decided that I didn't want to. I'd rather be broke and go surfing than be well off and be plumbing toilets for the rest of my life.
And from that point, was it a clear decision to get into pro surfing?
I never really thought that I was going to be a professional surfer. I just knew that I wasn't going to be a plumber, and I wanted to surf more, and I think that was like the main thing. I knew that I wasn't any good at competition surfing. I knew that I liked big waves, and that I was more confident in bigger waves than a lot of my mates who were way better surfers than me. And I had a few friends that were also quite into big waves, and they were sort of pushing the European side, like not having to go to Hawaii, not, just like cheaper options, make the most of what you have on your doorstep rather than like spending loads of money, flights and accommodation and stuff, like hanging out in Hawaii, which is obviously is what I wanted to do, but you can't afford to go to Hawaii. So make the most of what's on your doorstep.
Of course, you're trying to find those sweet spots around Europe that can, hold a big swell. I'm guessing a bit like Ireland, right?
It was only like an hour's flight, so I could hit the swells. Like as I didn't have to stay there for months on end, so which would cost a fortune. I could work at home, and then whenever it looked good at Moor or on the west coast of Ireland, quickly fly over, surf for 2 days, come back, and that was the most cost-effective way of doing it.
And am I right in thinking it's while you were in Ireland that Garrett McNamara got in contact with you?
In 2010, Garrett was in Portugal, and he was doing a project for the City Hall in Nazaré called the North Canyon Show, and they basically wanted to promote Nazaré as a surfing destination, as a big wave destination, and Garrett was struggling to find a safety crew and someone to tow him into waves, and the previous year we'd done a K38 rescue course on the skis, and it was one of the first courses that the K38 had done in the UK. So he reached out, and at first we were like, we didn't really want to come here, and we were sort of saying he should come to Ireland. And then he said he would pay for our flights if we came down, so we did. And that's pretty much it.
And from then, Nazaré became your regular spot.
Yeah, since that first trip in 2010, Nazaré has become... Well, Nazaré really has enabled me to be a professional surfer, and it's opened some doors. But maybe that's not Nazaré. Maybe that was Garrett. It's the most consistent big wave spot, I think, on the planet. It's not necessarily good, but it's consistently massive, and it's just a great place to train. It's a great place to train, towing, paddling, driving the ski.
Hey, Andrew, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Just one sec, I want to just check with our guest. Do you know who Garrett McNamara is?
No, you'll have to remind me. I don't know who that is.
Garrett McNamara is, he is huge on the big wave scene. He's a big wave surfer. He pioneered Nazaré. He camped out there for years trying to find that spot that he kind of thought was going to be this big wave spot. If you want to know more about that, check it out on 100 Foot Wave. It's a HBO series. He's also famous because he held, up to 2011, the Guinness Book of Record for the largest wave surfed. I think it was something like 78 feet. But Andrew, it must be crazy surfing with somebody like that, right?
Yeah, he's a little bit mad. But a good mad. He's very focused, very goal driven, and he's exciting to surf with.
Bringing it to the incident, it's the 8th of November 2017. There's a swell approaching, big waves. What happens?
It was like the first swell, like big swell of the season, like 2017. It's a really good direction, really amazing conditions, and pretty much knew that, like it would be, like something big was going to happen, like you just knew. And I checked the waves in the morning. I could just see like the way that the swell was coming in and refracting, and there was like a northeast wind. It was just blowing into like the left-handers, and they're like really they look like giant barrels. And I just like mind surfed a few and started just thinking about where I wanted to sort of place myself, and I think like it was at that point there, like I was like, okay, right, the goals today is to get barreled.
Okay, I'm so there with you. Tell me about the crew. Was there any hesitation at all?
It was a funny one because Garrett was like wanting to wait a little bit because it was going to get bigger throughout the day, but it was also going to get windier, and I was just like, nah, let's just get out there. Like there was no one out or hardly anyone out, and I just was like, let's just get out there and charge it. And
right, so you get on your ski and you head out. There's no way that I can even approach to understand what you go through. As you know, I surf myself, and I always get butterflies in my stomach, even when we're heading out and it's head high. So, what made you choose to go for that wave?
I don't know, it was just so smooth and clean, and it had like a really good like bend and like bowl, and I just thought, I just was like, okay, right, this is one of the ones that I saw when I was watching, and I thought, well, I'm going to try. I want to get super deep in here, and I want to try and get barreled. And as I let go of the rope, I sort of like faded, and I was like eyeing up the section, and then I kind of faded again, to like put myself even deeper, and then I sort of started to bottom turn, and the idea, and it's funny because I've rewatched the footage over and over again, and the idea was to sort of bottom turn and sort of come up like mid-face and snap into like sort of pull into the barrel.
Okay, so while you were chatting there, I've actually lined up the clip, and I think this is probably the appropriate time, if you don't mind, for us to show it. I hope you don't mind reliving it, but let's play the clip now for our guest.
O André Cotton. Anda bomba. Anda bomba. Ah! Viste o gajo? Dani, filmaste? Bom, o gajo foi projetado, meu. Onde é que o gajo está? Ah, está ali, está ali.
Wow, every time I see that, it makes me cringe. You know, like somebody, you know, talks about getting a nail in their foot or something. That's what I feel like. I see you being shot out of the white water, and it must have been terrifying.
So, like, to be frank, like, I didn't realise, like, when you look at the footage, obviously, you know, I get, like, ejected out. But I didn't know that happened. I thought like it was like a day later that I found that I got like sort of like blown out in front of the wave, and it was me hitting, like, as I landed in the flats was the impact, and the second that I landed in the flats is when I broke my back. But I honestly thought that I'd sort of gone over the falls in the barrel.
Okay, so Andrew and I have been kind of going backwards and forwards a bit, and I want to really chuck it back to you as a guest. Do you want to know what it's like to actually being held in one of these waves? What it feels like to kind of be in that wipeout? Or should we just get back on with the action and go back to that kind of incident 2017?
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like wiping out on the world's biggest wave.
Yeah, okay, let's push it into wipeouts. Let's kind of try and understand what it's like to be held down for that amount of time by tons of water. Andrew, what does it feel like when you've basically got an Arctic truck landing on your head?
The impact of a wave like that is just, it's like full body. It's like being like hit by a bus or something, you know, like it's full body. Like the power, like feels, you know, it feels like you like rip your arm off or your leg off or something, you know. It's like it is so much power in those waves. But yeah, and it's violent.
Yeah, of course. And then you're kind of you smashed around all over the place. You're kind of tumbled. If you haven't experienced that yourselves, then you know that's one of the major things that happen. You're kind of being pulled all over the place. I mean, Andrew, how do you even hold your breath for that amount of time?
Imagine like running, like you're sprinting 100 meters. So you sprint 100 meters, then you got to hold your breath, or you get violently shaken around and thrown on the floor, kicked a few times, and you're not allowed to breathe for 30 seconds, and then you're allowed one breath, and then you got to do it again. So it's like it can be pretty scary.
Hey Andrew, let me just stop you there because I've actually got a really good clip that demonstrates this from one of your Red Bull teammates, Kai Lenny. Let's ask our guest. Do you want us to play that for you now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let's. I think it's loaded up. Let's play the clip.
This is what happens when you wipe out in the world's biggest wave.
Going through a wipeout out there, it's almost hard to describe. It's like getting hit by a semi truck, holding your breath, and then getting beaten up by guys with 15 crowbars. And the entire time you have to relax. Like, it's the only way to preserve oxygen in your body is don't kick, don't swim. You got an inflation vest, relax. But relaxing when the whole world is crumbling on top of you is a hard thing to do. So that takes mental training, mental fortitude. And that was 12 years of experience up to that point, trying to hone in my skills for a moment like that. You reach a certain point where you can't feel anymore. It's just static, like a TV that is just static sound, you know, visual. There's nothing really there. It's just making that noise. And that's what it feels like. My eyes like can't absorb anymore because they're being pressed so hard. My ears can't hear anymore. My nerve endings can't feel anymore because it's being pressed so hard. So you almost go through the pain and you feel nothing except for static. That's what's crazy, is that it can't get much worse because I wouldn't be able to feel any more. It's the consequence of riding these big waves that you gotta pay to play eventually. And I've gotten away with a lot.
I don't know if you did. I tried holding my breath along with that. You know, it's difficult, right? And imagine if you're kind of being smacked around at the same time, held underwater, it's dark, you know, you're scared, you're coming up, you're seeing another wave coming. That's a lot to take in, right? I mean, Andrew, when you were going through the Wipeout, you know, your Wipeout, the incident, did you know that time it was going to be different?
You sort of know there's a cycle, like you get hit, it's quite violent, you get tumbled around, you might pull your inflation vest, sort of like it goes quiet, you pop up, you get rescued, and you know, you sort of like know the cycle.
Yeah, I hear you. You kind of know what to expect.
But it was very, very different. I just had this weird sort of weightlessness, and then I was like, and I couldn't really place where I was in the wave, whether like, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I should have had impact.
That's crazy. You were disorientated before you even hit the water. That sounds really scary.
I thought that I was being sucked over the falls, like, you know, in the barrel, and then I was like, okay, right. So if I'm going over with the lip, like sucked over with the lip, like any minute now, it's going to be like a pounding, and you know, like as the wave breaks, it's like, you know, you get smashed. But usually, if you're inside the barrel, it's not too bad. And so I was bracing, nothing, and then I just was like, well, this is really like, you know, where am I? You know, and then all of a sudden, I like landed. It was like jumping onto, like, it was like concrete, like, and it was straight through. Like, I landed on my bum, and the shock went straight from my back, and instantly it was like pain. Like, I knew straight away. I was like, okay, that's it, I'm done. You're like, there's no way that I'm surfing again today.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, literally, what happened next?
I can remember like surfacing and just like hoping that I could see a rescue ski, you know, like come and get me. And as I sort of surfaced, I can remember just seeing this second wave like looming, about to like detonate in front of me.
What goes through your mind when you see something like that?
I don't know, kind of like at that point you kind of in the zone, you know, like it's, you know, there's no referee, there's no timeout. It's just like you're in the hands of the ocean, you know, which is, it's a pretty humbling experience, you know.
I mean, I can't really imagine, but I am imagining. I mean, there's no time to panic, right?
So what can you do? You know, like there's no point in panicking. But I was more with it, and I pulled my vest, and it was violent. It was another violent wave, you know, violent like wave on the head. But I definitely surfaced a lot quicker after that wave, and that gave Hugo a chance to come and rescue me.
Let's watch that quickly.
Meu. De cá está, está ali, está ali. Olha lá, Hugo, foda-se. O gajo mandou. Bora! Agora os gajos perderam-se do jet ski. Jet ski, jet ski. Não, mas está-se bem, já estão ao pé da...
Whoa. God, that is hard to watch. It must have been harder to even live through. So obviously I've been asking a lot of questions. Let me chuck it back to you as our guest. Is there anything you want to ask in particular about the footage you've just seen?
So you've just been wiped out by one of the world's biggest waves, and now you've got to jet ski yourself to the shore in those conditions. How do you even do that?
There is a lot of water moving around there. I mean, that must be difficult to navigate, right?
Because Nazaré is a beach, it's not like there's a big, you don't just like run to the channel and chill out, you know. Like once you get on the ski, like the ride really begins, you know. It's and there's a lot of maneuvering and punching waves, and it's a really technical place to drive the jet ski.
Look, I know from my own experience, even when surfing in much, much smaller ways, when you're trying to paddle out through them, that, you know, when you're trying to, what we call duck diving, where you're going under the waves, is difficult. And so when you're trying to punching through the waves, you know, that big ball of white water that's coming through on a jet ski, you know, that's challenging. But doing that at Nazaré, that's really hard.
As you go to, you have to almost do like a 180 on the sand to punch the wave. And there's no way that I could have hung onto the ski and we could have punched like numerous waves to get back up. There was no way it was going to happen, you know. And as he did the 180, we got caught funny, and I just like let go of the sled. Like I'm like close enough to the beach. I wanna be. Like I just need to, like, you know. And I can like the ski got flipped. We both ended up in the water floating, and then
Yeah, you just floated to shore.
my suit was inflated, like my inflation suit. So I was floating nicely, and I sort of almost just got like washed up onto like the top of the bank nicely, and then the two lifeguards sort of ran over. I think they knew that like I was in difficulty or you know something was going on, and yeah, the lifeguards just sort of pulled me back, and then sort of started going into like a standard spinal recovery.
There's a number of ways we could go here, and so I'm going to open it back up to the floor. You've got three choices. You can either hear about the immediate aftermath, or you can hear about how he trained to get back to surfing after breaking his back, or just the sheer resilience and willpower. Which one do you want?
No, I'd love to hear more about healing a broken back and the training and recovery involved to get back onto top form.
Okay, so getting into the recovery process, you know, did you have timelines laid out for you? I mean, how long did this thing take?
After speaking with you know like the specialists, the goal was like I could start surfing, like start to properly surf at 9 months, and then be back in Nazaré surfing big waves within 12 months. I actually ended up being back in Nazaré after 11 months. So
okay, let me get this straight. You were back at Nazaré within a year. That's incredible.
Yeah, it always feels good to sort of achieve a goal, but to do it ahead of schedule was like, yeah, it was like a little win, you know. Like I was stoked.
Okay, a year's still a long time. I mean, what was that year like? Did you have a routine? I mean, how long was it before you actually noticed any progress?
Like I had regular treatments in Manchester. I think like it was between 2 weeks and every month. I'd go up and I'd do like a block, just of rehab and sort of see my progress, you know. And it was actually really nice, you know, like seeing like how you progress, and actually that beginning bit, like the first few months was quite motivating, because you feel like you are getting somewhere, and it feels like every week like you're looking that step closer.
What kind of exercises were involved in the recovery?
The standard like exercise, it's all about trans abs, so it was like sort of building deep core, So it's learning how to switch that deep core back on, and doing it correctly, and like ingraining good habits of switching that core on. And it was like really simple, like when you're lying down, like leg raises, knee raises, like really basic sort of exercises, but turning the deep core on. Most exercises evolved around trans abs. By the end of it, I was completely sick of just the word trans abs was like over it. But yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense. But were there any exercises that you did enjoy?
My favourite exercise was the hydrotherapy pools, because I could take off my body brace and I could like walk around in like sort of like waist chest high water, and then sort of do my squatting and knee raises and walking backwards and lunging and just being supported by the water. And obviously, any surfer's going to tell you they love being in the pool. Like I couldn't swim at that point, not quite. But just walking around, like I'd never had so much fun walking around and in a pool. Like it was great.
Okay, so last year I actually had my hip and femur replaced, and it was 3 months before I could surf again, and that was seriously painful. How long was it until you could surf again?
I definitely tried to surf before I should have done, but then I had to sort of wind it back a bit, and I think it was around like 5 months I started like going through the motions a little bit, like paddling the board, longboard, and sort of like, you lie to yourself, don't you? Like, I'll just paddle, be in the ocean, and then you paddle around for a little bit, and then you end up catching a wave and trying to get to your feet, and pushing it a little bit, and it hurts the ego a little bit because you're a bit slower getting to your feet, and sometimes it doesn't actually do what like it makes you like, oh no, like it sparks a bit of fear, a bit of worry, because you feel like you're not quick enough, or you're loads slower and your body's not moving correctly, and so sometimes it can work against you.
So Andrew, I've got to ask, was there any point of this where you thought, this might end your career in surfing?
Obviously there's lots of questions you sort of ask yourself, whether why you're doing it, what you're trying to prove. You obviously you're getting not only like family concern, but people are asking or speculating, or maybe it's a good time to sort of hang your hat up, like call it a day. But just being back, the amount of pleasure and fun that surfing big waves gives you, it was like answered all the questions. Yeah, I love it. It would have been easy to say, okay, yeah, like maybe it's time, and that'd have been the easy way out. But I'm definitely glad that I persevered and got back out there. It just brings a lot of pleasure.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining the call and taking us through, areas I didn't even realise we were going to talk about today. And also, Andrew, Cotty, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for kind of giving us such an inspirational chat today about, what was a pretty horrific accident. So, look, check out our other casts. See you again soon. Make sure you turn notifications on, and thanks.
So that was TwynCast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to have a go yourself, then check out the download links in the description, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.